are often called Mother Nature's multivitamin because they have such a high concentration of vitamins A, all the B vitamins, particularly B12, C, D, K. They have so many great nutrients for us, things like zinc, iron, potassium. And so we know, or often we have heard, that it is great to incorporate more organ meats into our diet, but it can be a little bit intimidating to know where to start. I find that people often have three main concerns when it comes to eating organ meats. First is where to actually source organ meats. Second is they're worried that they won't like the taste. And third, they're worried that they just don't even know where to start cooking with them in the kitchen. So today we'll briefly cover all of those concerns, and then we'll dive into the kitchen and actually show you how we start preparing them in our own household. So first, where to source organ meats. And this is a valid concern because the health of the animal will be directly related to the health and the nutritional value that you'll actually get out of the organ meats. So if you're able to actually raise the animals yourself, then great, you know exactly how they've been raised, if they've been out on pasture, getting access to sunshine and fresh green grass. But if you're not actually in a place where you're able to do that, then go ahead and find a local farmer, talk to them about their management practices, and find some way to actually source your organ meats from a local farmer, or if you have a great butcher that you can trust, again, you can get a sense of how those animals are raised. Because if you're eating something that has been raised in confinement or in a feedlot, that will directly impact the nutritional value of those organ meats. And second, people are worried about the taste. And I think oftentimes when people hear that they should be eating more organ meats, having more of them in their diet, often people point to liver because, ounce for ounce, it is one of the most nutrient dense foods that you can be eating. But liver is a pretty strong flavor. If you're going from eating no organ meats at all, jumping straight into eating liver might be a bit of a jump, and it might be a little bit off-putting. So I would recommend often starting with an organ like the heart, because while the heart is an organ, it's also a muscle. So it's going to have a more similar texture to what you might be used to eating as you're eating other muscle from the animal. And also, one of the things we're going to be talking about today is how we're actually going to be eating organ meats from chickens. And because they are a smaller animal, I find it is a much more easy way to kind of dive into the world of organ meats, because just first and foremost, it's a smaller size. So when you're getting a beef liver, you're getting this huge thing of liver. Whereas if you're getting a chicken liver, it's a very small, manageable piece of organ meat to actually start incorporating and cooking with in your kitchen. It also generally has a much milder flavor, so it can be a little easier to transition into as well. And then third, just not knowing even how to begin cooking with it. So we will go into the nuances of cooking some of the particular organs that we'll be covering today. But as a general rule, I'd say slice it up, cook it, kind of pan fry it in some butter or bacon grease, salt and pepper, and that's going to be a pretty good start for pretty much any of the organ meats. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the various organ meats that we're going to cover today, and then we'll just dive over to the kitchen so you can see us doing it in action. All right, so we'll start off with the heart. Again, this is one of the best organ meats to start with because it is that really mild flavor and texture that will be pretty easy to ease into. As I said, really the primary way that we cook hearts is just doing a simple pan fry in some butter with some salt and pepper. And so that is something that we probably use most often. We'll then serve it up with eggs or whatever other portions we're having in our meal. It also absorbs flavor really well. So if you're interested in marinating it, it'll really take on a lot of those flavors of the marinade. So that can be great if you are wanting to perhaps grill it. So make it into a little kebab, combine it with perhaps some onion, mushroom, pepper, and do a little kebab with the chicken heart on it. For liver, again, this is one that has a little bit stronger flavor, so you're going to want to bring in some other elements. Most often it is paired with something like an onion. Often when we make a chicken liver pate, we'll use shallot, which is just a little bit more mild onion flavor. Again, because we're using chicken liver, it's a little bit more mild, and so I think it pairs really well with something like a shallot. So we have a chicken liver pate recipe up on our website if you're interested in checking that out. One great thing if you are harvesting a bunch of chickens and you want to just make a big batch of pate, you can actually freeze it in, like little ice cube shapes. We have great little square shapes. And then you can keep that in your freezer for up to 3 months. And then you can just pull out the little portion of pate that you would like, spread it on some crackers or baguette. And it's just a great little appetizer at a party, or just as a little precursor to your meal. Great nutrient dense way to really incorporate that organ meat into your diet. And then often people will cook up liver and onions. It's kind of a classic combination that you hear. And again, that's going to be using the same technique. If you're going to be kind of pan frying it in some butter or some bacon grease, really incorporating some of those other great flavors to really make that liver a little more palatable as you're going to go eat it. And then we also save the gizzard when we're going to harvest our chickens. Again, it has a lot of protein. It has, again, some of those great minerals. It is a little bit of a tougher texture, so often we will slice it up pretty small and we'll go ahead and fry and bread it, or bread and fry it. And so we'll demonstrate that here in a little bit for you. But essentially, you can just take a little flour mixture, whatever type of flour you eat in your family. So whether that's a gluten-free flour or an einkorn flour, add some salt and pepper. You can add some paprika or other seasonings that your family really enjoys. You'll have one little bowl of your flour mixture, one of your egg mixture, dredge it, and then just pan fry it up. So there's a lot of different ways to use those organ meats. Again, when we're harvesting our chickens, we're also saving out the neck, but you're not going to just cook up your neck and eat it. We'll just go ahead and reserve that for our stock. And so we go ahead and just have a bag in our freezer to put all of our chicken bones, our chicken necks, things that we're going to turn into stock. So we can make a really big batch all together. So that way then we can either freeze that bone broth, or we can go ahead and pressure can it so that we have it shelf stable to use later in the year. So let's go ahead into the kitchen and we will demonstrate how we actually can use some of these organ meats in our everyday cooking. Here we are in the kitchen. Today we are going to prepare our chicken hearts as well as our chicken gizzards. I'm gonna just get them going both together at the same time and then talk you through the process. So with our chicken hearts, we're simply going to do a little quick saute in some butter with salt and pepper. So because these are so small, you definitely can leave them whole. We decided to slice them in half in this instance. Just makes it a little easier, especially for our little kids to eat them. And then also, if during the harvesting process you did have any extra blood kind of gathering, it would be in the heart. And so this gives you a chance just to kind of clean out anything else that may have been left from the harvesting process. And these cook really quickly. So this will be less than 5 minutes and these are done. So I'll just kind of toss them around here in the butter and then we'll get started with our gizzards. So for our gizzards today, we are actually going to bread and fry them. So we just have a quick little mixture here of some salt, pepper, paprika in our flour, and then we just have 1 egg that we quickly have whisked up. So when you're frying something, it's helpful to have a clean hand and a dry hand as best you can. So I'm going to go ahead and actually put it in the flour mixture first, and then drop it in your egg mixture. And then go back to your flour mixture, and then into the oil. So here today we are using a little bit of avocado oil. It's a really neutral flavored oil that also has a really high smoke point. So when you're frying, you want to make sure you're using an oil that is not going to kind of go rancid when it gets to those really high temperatures. And I'm going to go ahead and stick another one in, and then I'll check this one because it is probably already done. So again, you're going for kind of that medium rare consistency. We'll go ahead and take that out and let that sit here for a minute. Check on the hearts. And the hearts are almost done. I would say probably 1 more minute and those hearts will be cooked up. Because we're cooking in a cast iron pan, I actually am just going to turn the heat off on this and let them sit here for a minute while we grab this next gizzard out. Now here we use about 3 different gizzards, because when we took out our chickens this time to roast, we decided to roast 3. We were having some company over. We always like to have some leftovers so that we can then turn those chickens into chicken soup or chicken sandwiches as we go along. So if you were just doing one gizzard at a time, it would probably be, probably 4 slices worth. So it's just kind of a quick little process, but again, anytime you're breading and frying, it makes them pretty appealing, and it's definitely something our kids enjoy as well. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and remove these hearts from the heat entirely. I think they are done. You can see those delicious looking hearts. All right, so here we are with our hearts and our gizzards. And I forgot to mention, with the gizzard, you do remove that membrane, and then we just slice it up into kind of bite-sized pieces, so that way you can have this nice, healthy alternative to a little chicken nugget right here. So again, it's a kind of a tougher muscle, and so often with tougher muscles, we think of doing things like braising or slow cooking, something where we have this kind of long, drawn-out process to be able to tenderize it a little bit. But because the gizzard is so small, it doesn't really work as well in that exact application unless you're throwing it in with a roast or something that you're already doing. But this is a great way to kind of still enjoy that really nice, tough muscle in a way that's delicious. So enjoy.
All right, so another thing that we can do with the organ meats is integrate them into other dishes that we're making. And so that's one of the easiest ways to get organ meats into a meal, where kids and everyone else in the family will usually be able to eat them without even necessarily knowing that they're eating organ meats. So what we have today is we have some ground beef that we're using in a meal, and we're just going to really quick mince up some liver and add it into the ground beef and then finish cooking it so that the liver gets really incorporated into the ground beef. And then once this is going into a lasagna, so once all the sauces and all the other seasonings and flavors get mixed in with it, you don't even really know the organ meats are there, but you're getting all of those nutritional benefits that you want from them. And so what we have is one of the livers right down here that we pulled out of the chicken that we used yesterday for a meal. And all I'm going to do in order to incorporate it into our ground beef, and the ground beef has been cooking, I just pulled it off to kind of do this demonstration. It's not quite done yet. But I don't want to put the liver in at the start, because liver is going to not need as much cook time as the rest of the meat. And so I'm just adding the liver at the very end as the meat's finishing. And what I'm going to do is simply trim off any parts of the liver where there's connective tissue or blood vessels or anything like that that are still obvious, so that we have just kind of the nice clean tissue of the liver. And then I'm simply going to mince it up. Some people will talk about taking the liver when it's frozen and then grating it and adding it into ground beef in the same way. That works, and it is possible if you store your liver separate from the other organs. If you put your liver and your gizzard and neck and everything in one bag and they freeze kind of together in one mass, then that's a little more difficult to do. So in our case, we waited until all of those organs were thawed, and then we're simply taking the thawed organ meat, in this case liver, and adding it to our ground beef. So liver doesn't mince the way muscle does. It's really soft, and so it becomes kind of mushy when you're trying to mince it. But all I'm trying to do is get it small enough where it's not really discernible when we add it to the ground beef, so that when it gets spread out and it mixes in, it's there, but it's not the first thing that you notice when you take a bite. And it's got some liver in it. So with the liver cut up pretty small, again, looking for some of the connective tissue that will almost always make its way in with the liver, and getting that out, that would just result in it being chewy. And then taking the liver meat and adding it into our ground beef. And then we'll put this back on the cooktop and allow it to finish, and just stir it a few times to really bring that liver meat in with the rest of the ground beef. You can do this as well with heart or even with gizzard. It works really well with heart, but in this case, we're just using the liver for this purpose. We'll cook the heart up separately, but it's something that you can do with all of the organs. Liver is one that on its own has got a pretty strong taste, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but heart and gizzard are muscles, liver is not. And so heart and gizzard maybe are a little bit more versatile in terms of finding ways to integrate them or cook them on their own with a little more palatability for most people. Liver is one that some people just really have a hard time with. So getting it in a meal in this way where it's integrated in with all of the other flavors and the other meat that you're using, is a nice way to get it in people's diet without necessarily them knowing about it. All right, so I kept talking about chicken liver for breakfast, so it's something that we may as well do, right? So what I'm doing right now is going to do just chicken liver with bacon, onion, and a fried egg. Just a real simple way to take some of that livery taste out of the meal and have just a really nutrient dense, delicious way to start out a morning. So what I'll do is I've got my bacon, I'll fry the bacon, and then in the bacon fat, I'll toss the onions in and just let the onions start to cook, and then add the liver. The liver, one of the biggest things with liver is if you overcook it, then it gets really tough, and it's just not as enjoyable of a texture, and then you still have that liver flavor. And that's oftentimes what turns people off of liver, is a weird texture, and you get the livery taste. So the onions and the bacon combined will kind of cut the liver taste a little bit, and then not overcooking it is going to keep it a nice, delicious texture. So I'll do those items, bacon and then onion. I'll throw the liver in just long enough to give it a nice cook. You know, it's not a muscle, so it's hard to call it well done or medium rare or anything like that, but we want a medium rare consistency in terms of the timing. And then I'll finish it after the fact. I'll fry just a few eggs real quick, and we'll have a really nice nutrient dense breakfast that'll kick the day off with energy that will sustain me throughout the day. All right, so here we are with our chicken liver breakfast. We've got the bacon that we cooked first, and then in the bacon fat, I added just a little bit of butter as well because this bacon didn't render as much fat as I needed. Went ahead and cooked up the onions, and then the liver, and fried an egg in it after the fact. One of the things I love about making meals like this is I just used one pan, so minimal dishes. What else could have I added to this? Might have been nice if I'd had some spinach or maybe some chard, wilted some greens, put that down underneath the onions and liver. Would have made a really nice additional texture and flavor, and also some additional nutrients from the greens. Also could have toasted up maybe some homemade sourdough bread and put all of this over a piece of toast. Would have been a really delicious way to enjoy it as well. But here's your challenge. Go ahead and make yourself chicken liver for breakfast one day.
Thank you for joining us today as we've covered how to actually cleanly harvest your organ meats and then gain that confidence to prepare them in the kitchen. There are so many benefits to eating these great, delicious, nutrient-dense organ meats. We hope that you feel empowered to go out and try it on your own farm or homestead, or even if you're actually sourcing the meats from a local farmer, that you then have the confidence to prepare them in the kitchen in a way that makes them delicious, that your whole family wants to enjoy. We love really helping people learn how to eat farm to table in their own home. Whether or not you live on a farm, as long as you can source some great local seasonal ingredients, we want to give people the confidence to actually go ahead and build that menu, enjoy that experience, so that you can really have all those benefits of eating farm to table every day in your own home. So we have a lot of great resources on our website, our YouTube channel. If you click on the link below, you'll actually get access to our farm to table guide, which gives you some ideas of actually raising and then preparing some common vegetables. So if you want to get some more ideas for using beets or broccoli or whatever it might be, we have some great resources there. And we have several classes on how to actually preserve the harvest. And in that course, I do mention how we pressure can our chicken stock. So if that's something that you're interested in learning how to do, it is a great way to save on freezer space and to really have a great shelf-stable bone broth to be able to put into your soups and stews and just all of your cooking throughout the year. So again, we have a lot of great resources on our website. We hope you check it out and go feel empowered to eat some more organ meats in your own kitchen.